Hello and welcome to another video. Today we'll be looking at what if the Soviet Union came back. So this is what the Soviet Union looks like, and in this video we can see that they will be most likely going on some conquests to probably just gain more land. And so yeah. Now the first thing happening is we're gonna have to assume some things. Much like AIDA's Pro, we will be ignoring the United Nations and all military alliances. Those are no longer a thing. Realism is also not going to be applied here. This is not going to be realistic at all. I mean, the Soviet Union's back. That's not very realistic. But it's not going to be very realistic. So yeah, keep that in mind. And this is not to offend anyone or anything. This is just for entertainment purposes. But anyway, the first thing we see happening is they are going to go ahead and ally with China. Because much like in real life, they realize that the greatest threat here is, the Western countries, and so them, as well as North Korea, are going to join in an alliance. And Russia is, or not Russia, this is the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union. I can't talk again. This always happens. But yes, they have a military alliance now. And the first thing they're going to be doing after that is declaring war on Mongolia. So, both of these countries, consisting of course, Russia and China, are going to go ahead and invade Mongolia. And this will be a pretty easy war. As troops flood in from each side, and Mongolia is simply erased. And this is the division of Mongolia. So the Chinese will be getting to the south, and of course the Russians, or Soviets, will be getting the northern half. I know it takes a while to color in, so sorry about that. Yeah, so this is how it looks. And the next thing happening is actually them going after Finland. Now, not only do they not like Finland, but they also kind of want to get revenge on Finland for, how many casualties were in the Winter War, and it is also a good spot to attack. This will, of course, pull the territory of Åland into the war due to it being under Finnish control. And the Russians, not Russians, I keep calling them Russians, no, it's the Soviets. But they will, well, probably not in these northern regions, but they will move in, sliding down the coast, and eventually capturing Helsinki. And the Finnish will definitely put up a fight. The Russians will capture Åland, but they will have a lot of offensives, but I cannot get these countries' names right. I swear I'm good at this. But the Finnish will pull off a surprising counteroffensive across the whole front line during the winter. But after that, it is kind of downhill. As the Soviets. The Soviets will begin to sweep the rest of Finland, and once they're what is this called again? Lapland. I think it's called Lapland. But they will surrender, and it will, unfortunately for Finland, be full annexation. Soviet Union has no mercy. And yeah, now we see the Soviets already looking bigger. And well, their next move is going to be declaring war on the former members of the Warsaw Pact. This isn't a too surprising one, but they'll begin to pour into Romania, as well as Slovakia and Hungary. As you know, there's a strong member up here, kind of strong members down here, and then like a big weak spot. So they will just push their forces back here. They'll capture Bratislava and Budapest, which will cause the fall of both Slovakia and Hungary. And they'll also enter into the Czech Republic. And with Romania being enclosed, with them being surrounded on all sides, the Soviet forces will move in, and once they capture Bucharest, the Romanians will surrender. And the goal... Oh my gosh, I cannot talk. I keep trying to talk fast and it doesn't work. And you know, with stuff like this, like sometimes I don't record, but I'll be doing this stuff. I think I'm so used to that when I just mess up frequently. But it doesn't matter because I'm not recording. But the Bulgarians hold close ties with both the Russians and the Soviets. So most likely, they'll kind of just surrender over. The Soviets will cut off the Czechs from the Polish, and the Czechs, Prague will be captured, and the Russians will move in through, just kind of all over into Poland. Warsaw will be captured, and with this kind of just marks the end of Poland. Well, not the end, but like this end. But yeah, we can see what's gonna come of this treaty. Okay, so in this treaty we see the Soviet Union actually annexed some territory. This is kind of the punishment for these countries resisting occupation, which is kind of like, well, you're supposed to resist occupation. It's kind of what countries do, but basically the countries that they had a harder time invading are getting punishments. But the rest will be turned into puppet states or satellite states, and the Warsaw Pact is officially back. And so, well, it's kind of an alliance, but these guys are really just controlled by the Soviet Union. But the Warsaw Pact would, well, I don't know, some would say they need Albania. They left earlier than the rest, but they would need East. That's not the border of East Germany. I'm not going to spend too much time drawing it in. But they would need East Germany, which looks something like that. But that's not what they're getting, at least right now. So, yeah. But now we see an alliance actually formed, and that is an alliance aimed at basically keeping the Soviet Union out of territory. So, an anti-expansionist, right? Well, but like an anti-Soviet expansion alliance. Hold on, let me color this in. So this alliance is basically just a reformation of NATO, but they don't get as many members. So that's kind of unfortunate. But yeah, this is what we have right now, and they'd be able to put up a fight against the Soviets. I don't know if I'd say they'd win, especially against their whole alliance consisting of China and North Korea. But one of the first things is actually Cuba going right back to communism and joining the Soviet alliance, which will worry the Americans, and they will basically force Mexico into joining this alliance. Because, to have more dominance over the Gulf of Mexico. Well, it's Gulf of Mexico, Gulf of America, whatever you want to call it. Name doesn't really matter that much. At least for this area. I don't know. But anyway, they're worried that, the Soviets could get Mexico on their side, and that would not be good. So they'll do that. And it's kind of a battle of influence. India says they're going to stay neutral because they hold close ties to the Soviet Union as well as the United States, but they don't like China. So, yeah, it is, it's kind of, the tensions are heating up a little bit, but now we see a new addition, once again, to the alliance, this time being Serbia and Montenegro, and tensions will rise when Bosnia will break out I guess not break out, they already are in civil war technically, but civil war will finally consume them. I don't know why I said it like that, but basically they're going into full-on civil war. Croatia should have these areas alone. But yes, they're going into full-on civil war. It might already be full-on civil war. I don't know. Either way. The Russians will be helping the Serbs, and the Americans and their allies will be helping the Bosnian government. So when the Soviets arrive, they will crush Bosnian forces, capturing Sarajevo. But then the Americans will arrive, pushing back Bosnia, and no, these two alliances are not at war. This is just, it's kind of like the Vietnam and Korean wars in real life. But they will focus on taking out this northern area, and they will push back these guys. But it comes at a cost because these guys have just taken a bunch in the south and once again captured Sarajevo. Now cutting these guys into two. However, this group will just flee into Croatia. But overall, the Soviets do have the advantage here, and they will kick these guys out. They'll kick them out. And we actually see kind of a new Yugoslavia being created, but this time with a lot of aid from the Soviets, and they're kind of helping these guys, because if they weren't, this thing would collapse just as quickly as it just formed. It's just, there's too many ethnic groups within. This isn't too bad because, it's not with, the Albanians, the Greeks and Bulgarians, the North Macedonians, the Slovenians and Austrians and Croatians, but, they're still Croatians, but, it is kind of less to deal with. But yes, this is like a new Yugoslavia. Anyway, the video is not focused on what if Yugoslavia tried to reform. This is what if the Soviet Union came back, obviously. Oh, I forgot the color in these islands. These are part of Alaska, I think. Pretty sure. What is that? Why is there a white box there? Anyway, we now see that the Soviets, they are kind of looking who to go after because there's not a lot of countries. And what they will decide is they will decide to start basically overthrowing governments in South America. So first one we'll say is Peru. No, that is not Peru. That is Paraguay. We'll say Paraguay. And then Argentina will join these guys. And so will Chile. I forgot the color in the Falkland Islands for the United Kingdom. And then, Uruguay will join the Soviets, as well as Bolivia. Peru will join them. Colombia, Venezuela, Ecuador, and, of course this isn't this is just countries doing stuff. The Brazilian government is not going to be overthrown by either party because, they're a very capable country. However, we do see the Soviets now declaring war on Panama because they want the Panama Canal. This will cause the most tensions that we've seen so far. And the Soviets will wipe out Panama and go ahead and annex it, which kind of looks weird, but yeah. From here they will push their dominance into Costa Rica, Nicaragua, Honduras, El Salvador, Guatemala, and Belize. And why is that like that? I don't know. Honestly, that's kind of cool. Yeah, it does look cool. But the tensions are at an all-time high, and we see when Thailand joins this alliance, and Vietnam, that Laos and Cambodia will join this alliance, as well as Myanmar. And, tensions are now about to boil over. Pakistan will now join, as well as, probably not Afghanistan. Iran will join, though. And, Saudi Arabia will join. And, yes, we see this is very, very heated. And so now Greece will join these guys, and we see Iraq and Syria joining them. Kuwait will join, then Palestine, Israel. That's very controversial, but hey, this is just the map I have. Jordan, actually no, it would be Jordan, Lebanon, Egypt, and now Sudan. Then South Sudan joins these guys, and it is this is a lot, and the next thing is maybe not going to be so good for the world. I need to color in the Galapagos Islands. Because the tensions will eventually boil over, and, let's say some Soviet soldiers cross over into Germany, and this is taken as an act of war, and officially World War III is started. That looks really bright. if I, it might also look better if I just do that. I'm not a big fan of that. I feel like that's too bright. How about this, and then we'll just do like, this is occupied land. Yeah. Okay, anyway. Yeah, so the war supposedly started in Germany, but we can take a look at the Americas, where American ships will land in Cuba, and the Soviets will just evacuate. Now, these Central American countries are not doing too good. The Panama Canal is it's probably still holding out on the USSR's side because they do not want to lose that. Venezuela is advancing into Colombia and Guyana. The Guyana's actual will surprisingly fall, but that's just that front is out of the way. These guys, the Peruvians and maybe some Colombians too, are going to take over Ecuador. Bolivia is going to push into Chile and Peru, connecting up with the ocean. And Uruguay and Paraguay will connect up as the Soviets are sending a lot of supplies here. That is one of the main fronts. Over here, Sudan and Egypt will quickly crush South Sudanese forces, and Israel will fall. And very, very slow advance into Saudi Arabia will happen. Kuwait is taken over. And yeah, so now looking over here, we see the Turks go out trying to just do something. I don't know. As the Balkans will, Serbia will kind of collapse, and Western forces will enter into these puppet states. One of the main fronts is over here in Germany and the Czech Republic, where the Soviets will advance inward and set up a defensive line, as they maybe do something with the Norwegian government, and it maybe they topple it, and then say if they join the war, they'll give them some land, and so that kind of maybe happens, and then Sweden is invaded, and they're invaded and just not doing good. Stockholm is captured, and these guys are now gone. Sweden got wiped out pretty quickly. That was because the Soviets, they want to try and get rid of as many fronts as possible. The Thai will do very good in invading Myanmar, as well as Vietnam and Cambodia, or Vietnam and Thailand will invade Cambodia and Laos. But the Chinese forces will invade into Vietnam and northern Thailand. They'll capture Taiwan, and South Korea will fall, as the peninsula is under North Korea. The Japanese will continue to fight for their island very fiercely, and that is everything covered. So now we go for, I guess, like a second round. I don't know, but the Galapagos are captured, and Colombian forces have beaten back the Venezuelans, and are now pretty rapidly advancing inward. Yeah. Down here in Peru, the Bolivians are just throwing everything they have at Peru. They really, really want to just try and hold out. The front will slow down over here, and the Argentines, yeah, will cut Uruguay off from them and wipe them off. So now coming over here, we see the Western, the American side. I don't know. They reach the border and will set up a defensive line. However, in the Balkans, it isn't doing the best. They are pushing very, very slowly, but it is definitely working. And Turkey's a strong country. The Soviet Union knows this, and so they will direct most of their forces from the Middle East over here to just try to get rid of them, and throwing a bunch of stuff at Turkey. It'll push them back severely, as there weren't a lot of troops in Turkey because, they're invading into the Balkans, and, the Americans and the Europeans thought they could hold, their own weight, but apparently not. Well, they could until the Soviets decided to put everything on this line. Not literally everything, but, yeah. And we now see that the Saudis, or the Arabians, are being pushed back, and it is going very, very slow, especially with the offensive at Turkey, but it is going. And the Chinese will just throw everything down here, like nearly everything. They just want to get this front out of the way as quickly as possible. And the rest of the countries, they can function without the Chinese military helping. So their navy will still be fighting over Japan and the Philippines, but they'll throw a very, very large portion of their army just right here, and it'll do very well. They'll wipe out both Thailand and Vietnam, and it'll be declared a success, as they will now spread their forces out once again, as they will make a landing on the Philippines and quickly just destroy the Philippines. So now they can redirect their army probably all the way to Japan. So Japan's probably not going to stick around. So over here now, we see a massive game changer, as Brazil is offered a humongous amount of land if they join the war. And but which side are they going to join on? And they might have been kind of threatened to be invaded, but they are going to be joining on the Soviet side, changing the balance over here in South America. Now, once again, I want to restate, this is not meant to be realistic. It's, if anything, the opposite of realistic. But this will help these countries severely, and just as the Argentines were starting to push back, here come the Brazilians, as they just reliberated Uruguay and are starting to push back. They're also helping the Peruvians, they're not helping the Peruvians, they're helping the Bolivians invade the Peruvians. And Ecuador is reliberated. Colombia is now having a very big army attack them, and the Venezuelans will be able to push back. And it is not going too good for South America now, as the sides of war have completely changed, forcing the Americans to redirect most of their troops down here, which will lead to a lot of victory in just areas that they were stationed, such as Saudi Arabia, or Turkey, who will lose their capital, and this land will fall under as well. And eventually Bulgaria and Romania will be reliberated, and so will Serbia. And the Greeks will now lose, as the Soviets can pull a lot of their troops from South America. And now they're invading Croatia and Slovenia and have reached the border with Italy. This is already 30 minutes long. I'll try to speed up. But yes, Japan is now reached. A lot of army and navy is down here, and islands around it will be slowly but surely captured until the main offensive will begin, and it will take a very long time, but eventually it will fall because, probably the entire Chinese military, well, nearly, is there, and Japan is now occupied. And with this, Saudi Arabia will soon fall, just because they've lost motivation. Now looking back over here, we see the Brazilians push them all the way out and connecting up with those Soviet soldiers holding out in the Panama Canal, as they will now storm into Central American land. But they're stopped at the Gulf of America, Gulf of Mexico, whatever you want to call it. But they will be met with a very, very big amount of United States soldiers who will chase them all the way back to Honduras and recapture Belize and El Salvador. However, down here, the Brazilians they have captured Buenos Aires, and with this, it's not going good. And these two countries, Chile and Argentina, are going to go ahead and surrender over, as they know they have no chance. South America is now completely in the control of the Soviet side, and it's not a lot of land left. And so Australia will be given a choice, because they're gonna get destroyed. It's like, look at it, these guys are obviously gonna lose, so leave the war now, and we won't do anything to you, maybe even pay you some reparations. But if you keep on fighting, we are going to split you up very much and take away all your money. And the Australians are gonna just leave because they don't want to do that. And they know these guys are gonna lose. And so when the Soviets make a landing in Sicily and move up the Italian peninsula, fighting on two fronts, and now Sardinia is lost as well as Corsica. Now fighting on three fronts. Italy is not going to hold much longer. Their northern half will completely collapse as Rome will surrender. And the Soviets have control of a lot of the Mediterranean. And they're beginning to gather their forces to invade France. But right now they hold one giant defensive line, as they send their soldiers over here, and the Americans are, no, not, I said R and there's an R now. I don't know. But the Americans are pushing back the Brazilians, and now the troops from Argentina and Chile have arrived, but they're still moving fast and still advancing day by day. And so these Soviet soldiers will be sent down here and will begin to push back as they now help Brazil set up a complete defensive line over here. And a lot of American soldiers went into this, and there are a lot down here, which leads for what's about to happen because the Soviets are now invading into Germany, and no one is stopping them. They've captured the entire northern coast, well, almost the entire northern coast. Berlin has fell, and Germany, the entire airspace of Germany is now under Soviet control. And with a lot of bombs dropping, the Soviets will steamroll Germany, and they're now invading into the Netherlands and Belgium, who they will capture, as well as Luxembourg, and they will capture Alsace-Lorraine, I think, and the French will lose Dunkirk, and the French are not doing good, as the Soviets are crossing over this way too, and they're now fighting a two-front war. And now the two-front war is merged into one front, but one giant front. And these Soviet soldiers are getting very, very close to Paris. There's not anything happening over here, just a big stalemate. And eventually those Soviet soldiers will reach Paris. Paris will fall, and with it, France will soon follow, as the Soviets have just wiped out France. Spain will now begin to suffer even more internal issues, and the Soviets will be easily able to capture Madrid, with Spain falling and Lisbon being captured. The Iberian Peninsula and all of mainland Europe is under Soviet control. Ireland will go ahead and leave the war, seeing no point in fighting, and the British, being given the same offer as Australia, will follow. With this, Canada will also leave the war due to just not seeing a point in fighting. They know they're going to lose. And now with it, Mexico they're going to try to leave, but the United States is going to threaten them, and Mexico can unfortunately not leave the war. And with all those Soviet soldiers now in this front line, the front will begin to collapse for the Americans as Soviet soldiers make great strides into their lost allies and the Yucatan Peninsula. I think that's what that's called. And they now reach close to Mexico City, where Cuba will be then recaptured, and Mexico City will fall. And from here, Mexico has put up with enough. Their government will probably just be reformed by the Soviets, and the revolution goes very well. The entirety of Mexico will stand up against the Americans, and it's not looking too good. Hawaii is now gone, and well, I can't say anything else about Alaska. They are gone as well. Of course, as well as the islands. And, also, I completely forgot to mention, in this scenario, the world would be gone. Everyone would probably just blow each other up with nukes. So, no nuclear bombs in this scenario. But, now with the Soviets and the Mexicans and all their allies, the Chinese, the North Koreans, invading into the United States, it will be a very, very deadly war. But it is happening, and the Soviets will even land in Florida, as they soon will make several landings across the Gulf. I'll call it the Gulf. And from here, they'll move up the coast, and, they'll now be able to take over California, and with the United States starting to basically collapse, well, not really collapse, but most of their population will call for the end of the war, and it will lead to a revolution that will severely weaken the country. And as the Soviets will storm in, Washington, D.C. is approached and captured. And shortly after that happens, the revolution will take over the American government, and the United States will leave the war, ending the war. So let me draw up a very, very long peace treaty. Okay, so for the South America part of the war, we see Uruguay getting this, Brazil gets this, Paraguay gets this, Bolivia gets this, this, and this. Brazil gets this, as well as this, and that, and this. Suriname gets this and this. Venezuela gets this and this. And Ecuador gets this and this. And then these two, Argentina and Chile, will go ahead and unite together. For the North America part of the treaty, we see most of these countries getting just a pro-Soviet government. The Soviet Union will get Alaska, and Hawaii will become independent. The United States, all their states are going to become independent, but I don't have time to draw that in, so sorry. Just keep that in mind. This is not one thing anymore. They do receive punishments. Puerto Rico will also probably be let go. I forgot to even put them in the war, but yeah, so now we can, first thing to address, all these countries that joined are going to be leaving the Soviet alliance. Of course, Alaska is part of the Soviet Union now. But yeah, now for the other parts of the treaties. Okay, I think that is it. So, over here we saw Yugoslavia being reformed, but with Albania, so that means it's gonna probably collapse in 3 seconds. Just because this would not be able to happen, it's too unstable. But most of these countries, like Germany, I forgot to color in, will be just given new pro-Soviet governments, or will be turned into puppet states. I'm forgetting to color in everything. Sweden. No, they didn't have that island. But yeah, so you can kind of see China got some of Vietnam. Stuff happened down here. This is Chinese now. North Korea got South Korea. Japan is a puppet state. I almost forgot to these islands. And I think that's it. Now you might notice that the alliance is still there. Well, when they left the war, they didn't leave the alliance, but there's not really a point of having an alliance between the United Kingdom and Australia. So the United Kingdom will leave, and Australia will probably just leave as well, because you can't have an alliance with yourself. However, after this, we see probably most of these countries leaving the alliance, which, speaking of alliance, I need to but yes, so I need to differentiate who is in the alliance and who is Soviet. So just give me a minute for that. Okay, I think that's it. Sorry this is so long, but you can see who is a puppet state, who is an ally, who is, well, the Soviet Union. Now, obviously, once again, this is not meant to be realistic, and this video was purely in the favor of the Soviet Union because, well, it's their video. But after this, we see probably most of their Middle Eastern allies leave due to there not being a good reason to really stay. Pakistan will leave. These countries down here will leave. And it will now kind of go back to how it was originally. Following this Thai puppet state will probably end up breaking away. And yeah, we can see this is pretty much what we're left with. So if you did enjoy watching this, thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.